Just an FYI, my voice, my body, and my clothes do not define my gender. Please stop purposely misgendering.
How do I support people best and embrace their identity? Honey, it starts with shoes. When someone's trying to embrace their gender for the first time and their femininity, maybe they just need to borrow a pair of heels, you know? When one of your friends is trying to experiment with masculinity and needs to borrow a bow tie but doesn't have a bow tie yet, help them learn how to tie a bow tie and give them your bow tie. That kind of stuff is so important.
I want to talk about freedom of speech. Now, don't get me wrong, I love freedom of speech. I wouldn't be able to do this if it wasn't for freedom of speech. But there comes a point where freedom of speech crosses a line and just becomes hate speech. A lot of people think that freedom of speech means they can say whatever they want, whenever they want. And to some degree that's true, but a lot of people use this to spread hate and ignorance and just use it to bully people.
A curious behavior of the real woman is its tendency to utilize its razor-sharp incisors to tear apart the throat of any motherfucker who chooses to notify us of the ocean of taxonomical classifications we must satisfy to be entitled real. Real women cook. Real women clean. Real women raise children. Real women really want children. Real women wear makeup, but real women also don't wear makeup. Real women cover up. Real women are classy. Real women watch their weight. Real women are always presentable, and real women are never demanding because real women put others first.
Pronouns exist to make the person who's using them feel comfortable, not you, so goodbye.
It just, you know, it hurts me when you say things like that because you're implying that my gender is a girl when in fact it's fuck off.
I just don't understand this transgender, gender fluid shit. My daughter's gender fluid.
I really want to be a they, because I'm gender fluid and I'm pansexual. Yay!
Why are you so depressed? Because I misgender daily and I look like a lima bean.
Roses are red, violets are blue. I am a girl. Fuck you.
Remember that time when making rape jokes and jokes about sexual violence against women was funny? Me neither, because it never was. This is a classic issue of feminism, and I know that I've spoken about it before, but when men turn around and they say they don't like the content of what you're saying, their go-to and I guess like immediate response is to make jokes about how they can physically and sexually punish women. You know, rape jokes, punching them in the face, hospitalizing them. I mean, I feel like if that doesn't signify a need for feminism, when that's a man's go-to response, along the same sort of line is when men do this wonderful thing of gaslighting, and they think that they're taking the moral high ground and probably are not even aware that the way they're phrasing themselves is gaslighting and is part of gender inequality, but essentially turning around and saying, you know, I think that if you do this, it will show, you know, substance of character on your part, or if you partake in a constructive, calm conversation with me, it'll demonstrate to me that, you know, you're really quite capable of having a mature conversation. Like, it's just crazy. You know, the whole thing about interacting with people in a positive way or in a constructive way is about using strong I statements and about talking about yourself. I mean, when you start saying someone else needs to talk in a certain way.
And in this video, I want to discuss what's called a white savior and why it's a problem. So a white savior is a common trope used in books, films, and as a way of interpreting actual history. It's also a perspective shared by many white people as we move through the world. So in the simplest terms, it's when a white character or person rescues people of color from their oppression. So the white savior is portrayed as the good one, the one that we're meant to identify with as we watch or read these narratives, and they usually learn lessons about themselves along the way. There are many problems with this kind of narrative, some of which I'll go over. For instance, it racializes morality by consistently making us consistently identify with the good white person, saving the non-white people who are given much less of an identity in these plot lines. It also frames people of color as being unable to solve their own problems. It implies that they always need saving and that white people are the only ones competent enough to save them. I also wanted to go over being a white savior in your own life. So as white people, we can very easily slip into this role even if we have good intentions. So think of all those pictures of you or your white friend on a volunteering trip to Africa, surrounded by smiling black children in the center, positioned as the hero. That's largely what these trips amount to. So not only an attempt to Americanize one's surroundings by teaching English and often Western religious practices, but to embody this white savior that we've internalized from the narrative trope that I just discussed. So again, even if your intentions on this trip were pure and good, you can still recreate a harmful trope nonetheless. And this also applies to white teachers who are eager to enter these racialized or low-income schools and live out the narratives that they've seen in movies like Freedom Writers or similar plotlines. So we assume that we can bring these life-changing revelations about their potential, reveal to these children the possibilities of a better life. We, white people, tend to overlook our saviorism. We want to be heroes, but we end up victimizing people of color in the process. Ultimately, though, going to various countries in Africa as a white volunteerist or teaching in a racialized community, white people take on this role of an outsider there for a short time. And we have to be realistic about the limitations of our efforts and never forget our privileges going in. So even when our intentions are good, we can still contribute to this white savior narrative that centers us as hero over and over and over again.
Being a real man means being tough, strong, and definitely not girly or sensitive. But imagine if we could change all that. Imagine if you weren't considered any less of a man if you weren't to openly talk about your feelings or binge watch Scandal or take a beginner ballet class.
All right, guys, are you ready? 5, 6, 7, 8.
In the last 3 decades, we've seen a tremendous surge of women in the workplace, resulting in huge economic growth. And with women running this place, we're actually talking about a healthy work-life balance. And now we have time for our hobbies. Hey Frank, need help with that pearl stitch?
Research shows that couples who split the chores at home actually have more and better sex.
The more we can dismantle our rigid ideas about how women look, act, and exist in the world, the more we should be able to do the same for men. Right, bros?
Hey, did you guys know that countries that are closest to gender equality also have the happiest people?
Guys, look!
Oh! Can you accept this, Rose?
Yes!
Why are you blaming artists for something that bad people did? Shakespeare is not a bad person. He wrote beautiful stuff. It has suicide, it has murder, and it tells us something about our hearts. And people who watch Shakespeare don't kill. And Call of Duty is art. It is not some sort of propaganda thing. And that's an easy way out.
How about this? This is a case of violence with guns, video games, and mental health. Now, here's a kid who was borderline autistic with Asperger's. They have a lot of social problems.
But
they don't know how to
no violent problems.
No. Autistic kids are usually victims. My point is that if you sit this kid in a room all day shooting people, if they have no social skills...
How do you know that?
Because
it's been
well, he had no social skills.
There's no evidence that Asperger's syndrome people go violent from playing games.
This is not about Asperger's.
You have not one data point of evidence on that.
I'm not saying that.
Well, you just said it.
Well, let me try to be clearer.
Please.
Here's a person who has troubles figuring out what's social and what's not. And he's inundated with shoot. And then a little plan comes across, well, maybe I'll just go to school and shoot people.
No, you've just done cause and effect where it doesn't exist.
There's no guilt. There's no conscience.
That's not true that there's no guilt and no conscience.
He wouldn't make eye
That's not
contact with his
Asperger's.
barber.
Please don't tear those people apart. I have good friends with Asperger's. They have conscience. They have empathy. All of that is not true. You're spreading lies about people who are part of our society and that we need to love and take care of.